Welcome to the Soft Life with Sadie Baddies. Sadie Baddies is the antidote to mental health stigma, and this podcast is hosted by yours truly, Priscilla O. Adjaman. We are a virtual sanctuary centering Black and multiracial people, and we prioritize the mental and emotional nourishment that is the foundation of collective healing in our communities. Thank you for being here.
Welcome back to the Soft Life Baddies. I am so happy to be back with you. It is the first day of October. It is Libra season. We are still in the midst of Hispanic Heritage Month, and I'm just so excited to be back. It's been a minute. We did have a little bit of a hiatus, and genuinely, I feel so recharged and rejuvenated. Hopefully, you can hear it in my voice, but I really do feel excited to be back and talking with you and having our weekly chats and our conversations, our girl talk that we have every single week. So, thank you for coming back and listening and tuning in. I am your host, Priscilla Opoku Adjaman. If you are new here, I am the founder of Sadie Baddies, which is a wellness collective and digital media company that removes the stigma surrounding mental health by creating soft spaces and conversations. So, if you're new here, welcome. I would love to know how you found us, whether it's word of mouth, seeing us on Instagram, TikTok, or someone sent you a podcast episode. I'm always curious how people find the soft life or how the soft life finds them. So, either way, please feel free to share with us how you started tuning in. And we are back. Today is officially the first episode of season 7. So, we are going to be having two guest episodes today as well as next week, which we'll get into in a minute. And then we'll follow up it with some solo episodes that we have. We're going to be talking about a lot of different topics this season. So, we're going to have some guests that are going to bring really refreshing and new insight. We're also going to have solo episodes and talk about things like how to deal with jealousy, how you can handle being the first in your family to break generational curses, generational trauma. We're going to be talking about relationships. We're going to be talking about work life balance. We're going to be talking about creativity and a lot of other things. And we're going to have so many amazing guests that are going to bring so much life. So let's start with our first guest of the season, a dear friend of mine, Kat Lantigua, and I'm so excited to be talking with Kat today. As you'll see in our interview, it's giving range. There are so many different things that we end up focusing on in this conversation, but the underlying themes are about obviously her being a first time author. She's the author of the guide Build It and They Will Come, which is a guide to architecting intentional community. This was just released this year in July 2024, so still pretty brand new. And I have read the book. I joined, her New York City book tour that she had. She is currently on tour. She wrapped up her Miami tour as well as her Mexico City. And it's just amazing to be able to support somebody that you are in community with and just watch them grow and actualize all of the dreams that they speak about so passionately. And Kat does just that. Kat is also going to be at CultureCon. So anyone who is in the New York slash tri-state area, you might be familiar with CultureCon, and it is a yearly conference. Kat is going to be on the stage this weekend, October 5th. So if you are going to CultureCon, you can meet her yourself and tell her that we sent you. And just a little bit more about Kat and her background. Kat Lantigua is a first generation Dominican American creative living between Mexico City and New York. Kat founded Goddess Council, a global women's wellness collective that operated through 2021, and she is also the host of the Chats with Kat podcast. Kat is a writer, wellness facilitator, audio producer, and community architect passionate about building spaces that foster soul centered conversations and a sense of belonging. Kat is also a graduate of the Stephen J. Green School of International and Public Affairs at Florida International University. Kat and I met sometime in 2019, 2020 through the internet, of course, and we found each other naturally because of the work that we both do in community building, wellness, and social media. So naturally, we gravitated towards each other's work and have become friends since then. And I'm just really happy to again see her shine in this light, this beautiful space that she's in as an author, as a multifaceted creative. And I just think you're going to love this conversation. This conversation is for the yappers and the deep feelers. So if you are one of the two or both, if you are a yapper and you also love to feel deeply and strongly and intentionally, you are going to love this conversation between us. It's so beautiful. And I am sure that you will come back to it and reference it at some point because it is really that deep. Now, let's welcome Kat to the Soft Life. Hello, baddies. Welcome back to the Soft Life podcast. Today, we have such a beautiful and special guest, a dear friend of mine who I am so happy to be talking to today. We are here with the one and only Kat Lantigua, and she is here on her New York City book tour from her beautiful book, Build It and They Will Come, A Guide to Architecting Intentional Community. And Kat, we are so happy and so grateful that you are here. Welcome to the Soft Life.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be back. And well, actually, I think I had you on my show, but I've never been on your show,
Yes,
right?
this is the first
Oh my
time. Yeah, I was on Chats with
God.
Kat. I think it was 2022.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That's why I'm like, this feels so familiar. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm so glad to be on the show. Thank you for inviting me and for just being curious about this project and of course for pouring so much love into me throughout this tour. It means everything.
Oh my gosh, of course. I am so proud of you. You have been someone that I have looked to for so many reasons, but namely just your authenticity and the way that you show up for yourself first so that you can also show up in for our community and this create the spaces that we need so much. So I'm honored to be here with you, and I would just love to dive right in with you and describe how you're feeling in this exact moment. Like, what's your vibe? We're both in New York, but we're in different places right now. It's raining,
Mhm.
it's gloomy, it's been like that all weekend. But what is your vibe right now? How would you describe it?
I think it's like a mix of feelings because I've been away from my personal space for almost 2 months now.
Mhm.
And I feel like the disconnect from having my own space and being committed to my own routine has started to catch up with me. But I'm also still grateful that the reason I'm out of my routine is because I am spending time with my family and I'm talking about this book and I'm going to bookstores and connecting with the folks that I've been wanting to connect with in person. Like I've been wanting to talk about this book in person. So it's a mixed bag right now. But I think it's also allowing me to really appreciate the routine and my practices and rituals in a way that I don't think I would have if I was still in it because now I miss it and I'm really excited to get back into my practice and also I have a confidence now about being able to regulate myself when I know that I have an environment that is conducive to it whereas I think when I was younger I didn't even know how to really fully take care of
Mm.
my inner world and my mental health. Now I know what I need to do. And
Yeah,
so I'm gonna be able to navigate it differently. Like as soon as I'm back in my spot, like I'm good. I'm not
yeah,
aimless anymore, if that makes any sense to you.
absolutely. Of course. No, I think that makes resonates deeply with me, and I think as the folks listening will soon, learn if you're not familiar with Kat and her story, but you really are the definition of creating a safe space inside out and being able to alchemize the work that you're doing internally and create something that is a reality externally. And as I said before, watching you like self actualize is it's beyond inspiring. It's needed, and I just can't wait to get into this conversation because you are
proof that when you take care of yourself, the universe, God, your ancestors will take care of you too. So I'm just so
Mm,
happy to be here with you. And I know we're like 5 minutes in and I'm already like
I'm about to start
eyes
crying.
watering. I know. I'm like, let me reel it in. But honestly, just wanted to let you know that. And I'm just so excited to have this conversation with you. So
Thank you.
for those who don't know you and know your amazing story, your incredible journey, can you describe your origin story and kind of give us, in your own words, like who is Kat? Where did you come from? What are the cities, the places, the spaces that resonate with your origin story? And also, if you can give us a little, for the astrology girls, maybe your big three, your sun, moon,
Yeah.
rising, give us a little tea on that.
Absolutely. Well, we'll start off with my big three. I am a New Year's baby, so my birthday's January 1st. My sun is in Capricorn, and my moon and my rising are in Aries. I was born in the Bronx in the 90s. My mom was a teen mom, my dad, an immigrant to the United States from DR. And I would say that my origin story is one that is both like very loud and very quiet at the same time. I come from a family that is very rich in its culture and texture and connection to one another. And at the same time, I grew up in Miami. I moved there when I was 5, and it's because my mom was trying to start a new life for us, and she was in a new relationship. And that move to Miami at the age of 5 really is where I think a lot of my quiet and introspective childhood kind of formed. Transparently, I think it was kind of trauma based because there were some folks in my life at the time that were not well, and so I had to go very, very, very inward in order to protect myself and to kind of respond to the reality that I was living. But when I think back on how everything has played out in my life, it's very interesting that that is like where my contemplative practice began.
Mm.
Um, I have very vivid memories of being like 6, 7, 8 years old, just being in my room and thinking a lot about what it meant to be a person, what it meant to feel sadness, what it meant to feel lonely, what it meant to feel like I yearned to be somewhere else, which was like in the Bronx with my very loud and loving Dominican family. Um, and so that's when I began to write. That's when I began to journal. I had diaries from like a very early age. And I spent a lot of time playing by myself. My little sister wasn't born until I was like 8 years old. So I just spent a lot of time by myself, writing letters to people that never got it, wishing I was somewhere else, imagining what my life would be like if I was in some other place. And so I think that's like it's kind of sad, but at the same time, that's what kind of ignited my imagination. So I've been trying to make sense of like, sometimes our life plays out in a certain way and we don't really understand why when we're going through things. But when we think back on it, it's like it had to kind of make sense
Yeah.
in that way. And so eventually I began to write online. I started a blog back in like 2011, I think, right after high school. And I was just starting to kind of put my personal thoughts that would have been in a diary and a journal online on my first website. That I honestly started this because I was like bartending at this like private New Year's party. I was 22. I was turning 22. So like my birthday's on January 1st. So I was bartending at this
Mhm.
like private party December 31st. And I met this guy who was like, there's just something about you. I feel like you should be writing these things publicly, because we were having a conversation at the bar about
Whoa.
like the new year and all this stuff. And I don't know if I've ever told this story. And I was like, really? Like, I don't know. These are just my thoughts. And, I just kind of put this all in my journal. And he was like, I want to make a logo for you. And I want this to be like
Wow.
the moment that you decide that you're going to start writing this and putting it out in the world. And I was like,
Whoa.
okay, like whatever. And so that was me going into like my 22nd birthday. And he did make my logo. And that's when I started my blog. That's when I started catlantigua.com. And no one was reading it really at the time. And for a long time, nobody was really engaging with my work. It was just like the first time that I began to become comfortable with like sharing these personal thoughts with the world, even though like maybe five people were reading my blog at the time. And then I've always been curious about other people's stories, and so I also began to like ask women that were inspiring me in Miami about their lives. And what I began to do was just like interview them. I would record interviews on my phone and then transcribe them, and then I would post these interviews on my blog. And then that's how people started to kind of start, engaging with me through the interviews that I was doing for other people. And in between those interviews, it was just like my thoughts about life and what it meant to like want more and to be sensitive. um, and then I moved back to the Bronx when I was 24. And I kept doing that, but I began to fall in love with podcasting and audio production. And so I was like, what if I stopped writing these interviews and I began to actually record these interviews? And then what if I stopped typing out these feelings and the thoughts that I had and instead started to put them out? And so I taught myself how to use GarageBand, and I got like a Yeti mic or something, and that's what I started to do. And again, nobody was really listening to my podcasts chats with Kat at the time. It was really just this feeling that I had that I wanted to document because I just knew my life was unfolding in a way that I wasn't sure how it would become, but I wanted to have proof that like I was trying.
Right.
And I wanted to create transparency about like the grittiness of being a person that's just trying to figure it out, and talk to people who were open about what it meant for them to be figuring it out. And so that's how my podcast Chats with Kat formed, and that was like 2017, I believe. And then in the midst of that, I moved into my own apartment in Flatbush, and as I write about in chapter 2 of the book, that's where Goddess Council was formed, and it became this accidental community that started in my living room because I was feeling really lonely in New York, and I had my family, but I wanted a different kind of community. I wanted to be around women who felt like I felt and who were going after the things that I wanted to go after in my life, but in their own personal ways. I wanted to have people that I could go to museums with and that I could go to brunch with and have like intimate dinners with and talk about like what it was that we were trying to figure out in our lives. And that kind of blossomed into eventually like a global women's wellness collective. It started off in my living room, and then it went to Miami, and then we were going to start branching out into LA because I imagined it as like chapters in different cities. And then 2020 happened and everything became virtual. And then that's when things like really grew for us because we were able to be accessible to people all over. And I don't have to talk about what happened in 2020 and beyond, but people really needed help and people wanted to feel like they belonged somewhere. And so that's where my journey of like leaning into intentional gathering and architecting spaces began. And that's where I became a facilitator all by accident, but it was like kind of like God revealing to me that I had more within and that I had things that I could share and gifts that I wasn't even able to tap into. And it kind of began to form my understanding of what I'm here for. And it's really so that I can be a conduit for like people to feel safe, to tap into themselves. I kind of go back and forth with this word of like, am I a healer? Am I not a healer? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't heal people. I just allow people, I give people the permission to show up to a space so that they can tap into what it means to heal for themselves. And I do that by showing people first and foremost what it's been like for me. I can't tell people like, oh, you're safe to like unfold if I haven't shown them what it's been like for me to unfold. And as I think about like 24-year-old Kat that was recording the podcast who was like talking about these things, like I feel like she knew that it would be a testimony in the future because the proof point is there. Like I've been trying to figure it out and I still don't know what it's like to have the answers, but like I don't think I have any shame in being open about the fact that like I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I'm going somewhere. And then now I have this book that's allowed me to pour in all of these lessons into a tangible physical project. And that's just yet another proof point. Like I didn't know that I would eventually have a book out in 2024. I didn't know that I would be able to talk about all of the things that have happened to me and that I've learned. But I guess there's a part of my soul that always knew this is what was going to happen. And I'm just so grateful that I get to share this with people and that I get to now create a intentional gathering
Yeah.
space, but through like a literary approach, because this is just like another manifestation of what my soul really just wants to do, which is just
Yeah.
allow people to feel and to
Yeah.
connect with another human being that is just trying just like they are.
Wow. Wow. I That was so beautifully said. I mean, I'm just still like taking it all in, and there are so many things that stuck out with when you were sharing about your origin story and like kind of describing how you came to this point. I think one of the things that stuck out was number one, the receptivity that you had for someone to say, "Hey, I think you should start writing and you should start sharing your writing." And in that moment, you have a choice, right? You can either reject that and be like, no, why would I do that? Or you can be receptive to it and think, oh, okay, well, let me dig deeper, right? And then from there, you had the courage, like that was almost like that one drop. I'm sure there were many other situations through your family, friends, experiences, travel, but just from what you outlined, that experience also connecting the dot to you having the courage to start goddess councils and being vulnerable enough to show up and ask people to come in and build community in that way. And I also think it's so beautiful how it parallels to how you started the process of writing Build It and They Will Come. And I think people sometimes think confidence is like this trait that you're either born with or not, or sometimes they think, oh, well, if you're, for example, like, if you're a fire sign, you must be confident because you're an Aries or you're Sag or whatever, right? Like people think it's something that you're just inherently born with, but it's actually a practice and it is a skill. And what it sounds like to me is through these moments, these micro moments, like I like to say, you started to build that confidence so that you could publish and create something tangible as this and share it with the world. And I think that is a testament to listening to those signs, but also being able to like synthesize all of that information, those downloads, and actually put it together. And I think as creatives, that is that is kind of the end goal, is to synthesize those experiences and to create something that is tangible at the end of the day. And this, watching you do this, is so powerful. You also being someone who came from a background where you didn't probably have that much representation of seeing someone do it in the way that you did is also incredible. And you just having the foresight to do that with such intention. I also love that you use the word conduit because I think healers and people who are in community, they have titles that either they give themselves or other people give them, but the word conduit is such a unique and special word that I think not a lot of people are familiar with. So can we actually dig deeper and like talk about that? Like,
Yeah.
why does that resonate deeply with you? That is also a word that resonates deeply with me. Um, but I would love to hear from your perspective. Like, what is it about being a conduit that you feel just gels with you?
Oh, I love that you asked me that. I've never really like been able to talk about this with anyone. You know, even as I navigate this book tour and I'm engaging with folks who perceive me, right? And who have their own experience of me that I'm just finding out about because I put things out, but I don't know how it's going to be received. I don't know how it
Right.
impacts people. I just allow myself to be a conduit. I allow the the message, the lesson, the feeling to be alchemized into something and I release it. And I don't know what the energetic charge of that is when it finds the people it's supposed to find, I just know what the energetic charge is for me as I'm receiving it. And so I feel, to the point of titles and stuff, like I have been, people put the term healer on me because of how I make them feel, but I don't resonate with that because I don't feel like it's me.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever they feel, like it is me, it's my body,
Mm-hmm.
it's my voice, it's my face, it's all of this. But a lot of things that have happened throughout my life, a lot of moments where I have made things and written things, it feels like I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just me and God in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
trying to make sense of what this life experience is. Um, and so that's why I feel like I'm a conduit, because in that moment I'm having my own spiritual relationship with what I'm writing, what I'm saying, what I'm trying to make sense of. And it's me and God, just us. But because I share, because I put it out, then people get to experience that relationship, that spiritual relationship that I have
Yeah.
with God. And I don't think about God as like a man in the sky. You know, I
Yeah.
think about God as like source, mother, that energy that we all come
Yeah.
back, that we're all from and that we go back to. And so writing and going into this contemplative practice for me has been spiritual, and I've needed it because life for me has been very confusing for a long time. Um, and I feel like now I'm 31, I'm about to turn 32, it's starting to make more sense. And make more sense in that, like, I know now the lessons will never end. I know now that every time I enter the void of confusion, it's because like there's something I'm supposed to take out of there. There's some information I'm supposed to bring back. There's something I'm supposed to bring back like into the light. And I don't resist it as much anymore. I think I'm more comfortable with like the fact that this is just like that's what Earth School is.
Mm.
Um, and so now that I don't resist it, I think that I'll have an easier time navigating this human experience moving forward. Not that it will be easy and seamless, but I won't resist it, which is what I think has led to a lot of suffering for me in the past. And so I think writing and expressing and sharing is the way that I am able to like add a balm to this experience for me. Like, because I've experienced such profound loneliness in my life, I feel like the thing that soothes me is being able to be in community with people, but
Mm-hmm.
not just like be around people, but like be with people actually, where we can
Yeah.
talk about the things that maybe we feel like we're not supposed to say out loud, because that's what makes me feel less crazy. That's what makes me feel like, okay, so we're all trying to figure out the same thing, but like this is your approach, this is my approach. Okay, we can cry together, we can alchemize together, and that's what I mean about creating those spaces, those pockets of like belonging, where people can feel like I get to talk about the fact that I'm figuring it out with other people who don't judge
Yeah.
me. And that's where I feel like a conduit, because I'm
Yeah.
just now opening up a spiritual space and like a deep, profound space for all of us to mix and like transform our independent individual energy into something bigger. But then we all leave and we break away and we go back into our personal lives, but we're not the same anymore because of
Mm-hmm.
that experience that
Yeah.
we had, whether it was an hour or 30 minutes, or whether it was like in a living room or on a podcast, or I don't know, I have so many ideas for how it can manifest in the future, but like I think there's something very sacred about that. And
Mm-hmm.
when I'm facilitating those moments, it's just me being a conduit for like a spiritual experience that we all get to have, but it does feel like God is present in those moments.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, if you know, you know. If you know, I think when you have utilized and appreciated and taken time to really hone in on the spiritual gifts that you have, because every single person does have spiritual gifts, but not all of us develop them or hone in on them or have time or resources to do that work, because it does require a certain amount of space to be able to even recognize that you have that gift. And it also requires support from community. It requires um, time away, solitude. A lot of people are not even afforded the luxury of solitude. Um,
Right.
so I think being able to have that and recognize what your gifts are, and then not only just recognize it but really develop it and flesh it out and practice it is a gift. So I
Mm.
just love that you shared that. And I just want to get into your beautiful, beautiful book, which I love and I've read and have bookmarked and dog eared and just been in love with. Build It and They Will Come, A Guide to Architecting Intentional Community. And I have so many thoughts. I would love for you to first give us just, first of all, the title. How did you come up with such a beautiful title? Because if I describe, if I use this, like just a few words to describe how I felt reading this book, this was such, it was written with so much conviction. Like I could hear the
Mm.
conviction in every single word that you wrote. Every single sentence felt like it was coming from like the core of you. And I think that's hard to do in writing sometimes because you just want to share a lot. And this is also a guide, right? It's not necessary. It's part memoir in a way, but it is a
Mm.
guide. So
Mhm.
you do literally outline step by step how you can go about building community, and not community as in like just consumers, which it's been commodified as, but actual community. So if you could share how you even started, this writing process, what inspired the title,
Mhm.
and what was kind of like the aha moment that you had to start writing this book.
So, build it and they will come is a phrase that I've heard over the years. I think the first time I heard it was probably like in 2018. I don't remember who said it. I don't remember where I was, but I just remember that lingering in my mind. And at the time, I was in the early stages of forming Goddess Council. And I was like, I think that's what's happening. Like, I think that's what I'm doing right now. And so it just always made sense. And I was living it. I was like building it, and the more and more and more women were arriving to the experience. And I was like, yeah, I think that's as easy as it is. I mean, it's not that it's easy, but like if you see a gap in reality and you see something is missing in society, just create the solution, and you'll see that people were looking for it. That's just the formula. um and then in terms of like writing the actual book and deciding I wanted to write the book, it was one of those impulses and those things that I felt like God was like, you're like, as you find out in the book, I end up having to close down Goddess Council, and it was devastating. It was embarrassing. I felt a lot of shame. I felt a lot of pain. I was burnt out. I was so confused. I didn't know why I had to be that way. And it felt like the only way I was going to be able to move through that period of time was to write about it and to document it and to like make sense of what my life was. And so that's what it was. It became an opportunity for me to synthesize my pain and to alchemize from my pain. I also think it's important to note that like I did not have a book deal before I started writing. Only like a few people knew I was writing, and this was a process for me first and foremost. And I think that that's important to remember for people who are artists, because we live in a time where everything is commodified
Mhm.
and everything is supposed to be like content, and everything is supposed to be a means to an end to like, grow your audience and do this and do that. And when I think about my journey, it's like I've obviously wanted people to find my work, but it's really been so that they can connect with a body of work, not because I have wanted to necessarily have like a massive platform. And obviously, I'm not going to say that ego hasn't crept in where I'm like, okay, like I think what I'm saying is pretty cool. And I think that people are looking for this. Like, I feel like there should be more people here that know that this is what I'm doing. But for the most part, it's always been like, I want people to feel.
Mhm.
And so when I started writing the book, it was an opportunity for me to check myself again, to say, are you embarking on this project because you want people to just know that you're writing a book? Or are you writing this and you're doing this because you have something to say, because your soul wants to heal from this moment and from this thing, and because you want to make sense of life? And that's why I didn't tell many people I was writing it because I wanted it to be for me, and I wanted it to be for my spirit, and I wanted it to be an opportunity for me to connect with God. And so when I began writing the book, life kind of crashed again, where I got a divorce and I realized that like a lot of things in my personal life were out of alignment. And so then the book became even more important to me because it was the one thing I had that felt like my life was not
Mm-hmm.
in shambles. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
goddess council went away, my marriage went away. I ended up moving to Mexico City on my own because I just felt like I had to just be in a new place. Like I could not be anywhere that felt familiar because nothing made sense. But this idea made sense, and this book made sense, and this promise that I made to myself became the saving grace that I had throughout my days because I would write. My writing process was like a 4:30 to 8:30 or 4:30 to 9 in the morning process. And then after that, it was like my days were open and I was crying and I was trying to make sense of everything and I was still very confused and lost. But like there was something about knowing that I showed up for a few hours every morning to this project. And again, I did not have a book deal. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just knew that it would become something one day, but I didn't know how. I just needed to do this for myself. I needed to make sense of it so that I could close that chapter of my life, but come out of it with something. Like that was me like going, that was in the void. And this book is what I came out of the void with. Like if you could imagine like images of like what the universe looks like the galaxies and like all of that, like I kind of picture myself as like a floating person in there who was like taking away, like gathering information from all the stars and all of that energy. And then like I was zapped back into the earth and like, here's what I
Mm-hmm.
came out with. That's really what it felt like inside. And that's the only way I can describe it because it really was like this thing that I can't really explain it. Like I can't really explain what it felt like to be up at 5:30 to be up at 5:30, but like I was already writing for an hour like in the dark and with my incense and like my dogs laying at my feet and drinking my tea and like crying as I'm writing these words. And maybe that's why that conviction came across, because like I was typing away at the computer with like this energy, this power, this sadness, this confusion, but also this clarity that was coming to me
Yeah.
the longer that I stayed at the keyboard. And so the fact that it is a book that people are reading now is something that I'm like, I knew that would happen one day, but I didn't know when. I didn't know if it would happen in 2024. I didn't know if it would happen in 2030. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know if I would like self-publish. I just knew I needed to have it out. And there was something really important too about the fact that like I was about to turn 30 years old and my birthday is on January 1st. And it felt like just complete this manuscript so that you can leave this in your 20s because
Mm.
you're about to enter your 30s on the 1st of 2023. You're going to be, was it 2023? Yeah, you're going to be
Mm-hmm.
30. So like just really sit down and hone in and extract as much as you can from what this past decade has been. And that's what happened. And so now everybody is experiencing this work that you know, I finished this book, in 2021. 2020, I'm like, what are the years at this point? Yeah, in 2021 it was when I finished the original manuscript. And
Yeah.
so now I'm able to talk about it. Now it's like a refined, edited version. Now, that like it's published. I got a publisher and it's now the full story. But like when I started, I didn't know the full story. I didn't know what it would become. I didn't know how it would look. I didn't know that's what the cover was going to be like. I didn't know what the texture of the book was going to be. It was a Google Doc for years, and now it is a book that I really hope resonates with people
Oh, it
because
does.
it's my spirit in there.
It does. You did your big one. I mean, it
Thank you.
it does. It's so rich. I really don't have words to describe it. It's just so intentional and so detailed. And it's detailed in a way that's not just like jargon, because community is this what's it? It's such a hot topic now for so many reasons, but I actually want to read a passage from your book on page 19, if I may. And
Yes, please.
I just really deeply resonated with this section because it really describes what I think is the disconnect between actual community, which is what you're writing about, and then the community that we see being commodified by brands, by organizations, corporations, and even within some of our networks are like the conferences we go to, the festivals, etc. But I'm going to read a section. This is on page 19 in the chapter Belonging. And it says Instagrammable conferences and pop ups do not automatically equate to belonging. I cannot deny the pervasiveness of Instagram and online brands that have mastered marketing aesthetics, pivoting their companies to hosting in person events that are more in person hubs for content creation. After attending a few of these new agey events and conferences, it has become clear that oftentimes so much focus is put into what these experiences will look like that prioritizing the feeling guests will have becomes an afterthought. This prevailing occurrence is draining, and I am ready for it to be over. Community and belonging are not a product you can sell. It is not something that is simply pretty. Community and belonging are experienced through a humanity first lens. It is one of the most sacred languages of the soul. That jumped out at me. I literally highlight circled. I was like, oh my God, talk about it. And now that I have you here, I actually do want to talk about it and
Mhm.
unpack what that really means. And just, yeah, take it away. I would love for you to just sink deeper into that with us.
Well, it's like for so long I felt like, hello, is anybody noticing that something about this is
Yeah.
wrong? And I, especially before 2020, like I was going to these places and I'm like, this is cute, I guess, but like,
Yeah.
why do I feel like the all I did was just take pictures and I walked away with freebies? Like,
Yep.
you had an opportunity to really do something here. The people are here and you didn't do it. And I don't know, like I felt so alone in my critique because it felt like everybody was content with it. Like it seemed like enough for everyone. And I was just like, yeah, no, like something about this is off. But I don't have the money and the resources to make my own experiences in that kind of at that scale. Um, so I guess like I won't be able to go to these anymore. But like it was like almost there, but like they just never nailed
Yeah.
it. But when you look at what it looked like when you got the recap online and when you know the photos came out, it seems like everybody's just having such a great time. And I'm like, it's like there's an invisibility here. There's
Yeah.
something that you can't take a picture of. It's a feeling. But people, I guess, are so used to it not being present that they don't even know how to point to the thing. But
Hmm.
because that's how I experience everything. And all I do is try to feel and like get people to feel. I'm like, oh yeah, people are not really like feeling. They're just like
Yeah. Yeah.
experiencing imagery and like aesthetics and colors and it's beautiful. Like people are doing a great job. Like it's not to say that that's not important, but
Yeah.
it's like there's something else here. And I feel like people are kind of I think people are ready for it. I mean, I know I obviously you it resonated with you. Like I know I'm not the only one who's just like, all right, let's move on to like something else because this cannot be it. Like you
Yeah.
can't there's no way that that's how we're allocating, you know, $100,000 budget. Like that's all we're getting from that. Like we could do so much more. We could change lives, like actually change lives and forge and open up spaces for people to forge relationships and connections that will change their lives and not just like, hey, here's my business card. I'm talking about changing people's lives where they walk away with new friendships, potential soulmates. And I'm not even just saying romantic soulmates. I'm talking platonic soulmates.
Mhm.
A conversation that will leave somebody feeling like they want to stay here.
Mhm.
They want to be here. And I know that that's like maybe really extreme, but I understand that a lot of people are still are trying to navigate whether they want to be here on this planet, and
Mhm.
that's as serious as it is. If we're gonna talk about it, and the
Talk
show's
about it.
you know called Sadie Baddies, like I am no stranger to having deep moments of like I don't like I'm trying to make sense of why it's worth being here
Yeah.
because this place is so sad, and that's another reason why I'm so committed to the work that I'm in because when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, those are the things I was thinking about because of the circumstances of my childhood. Um, and I just was able to connect with that feeling with my therapist like last year, where I finally said out loud, like, yeah, I was like 7 years old, like thinking about life and mortality and my existentialism, because of the profound sadness and loneliness that I felt. And so when I see brands and when I see companies co-opt this word community, when I hear about belonging and all this stuff, I'm like, don't disrespect me by making it seem so simple, because I know I know what it feels like to not belong, and I'm talking about it in the most real way. And you keep trying to convince me that you have the solution to that thing that I know so many people feel, and it is not that simple. And it feels like you're playing in my face. It feels like you're playing in my face, and I don't know how much more of that I can take before I'm gonna explode. And like, where do I even explode? Like, it's like screaming into the ether at this point. But um that's why I felt like I had to write that in the book, because like I'm so annoyed. Like, we have to move on. Like, it has to progress because the stakes are high. Like, I don't have to tell people what's going on in the world at this point. We're all like trying to figure out how to stay here without losing our minds, and the only way that we're going to be able to stay intact is by feeling each other and being committed to each other. And that is not something that you can sell. Really, it's an experience. It is something that, like, the people who are creating those spaces and those opportunities really have to give a fuck first before the people show up. And that's what I want to do. That's what I'm trying to do, is create those feelings and those moments of like, somebody gave a fuck before you got here. And that's why you get to now, that's why you feel safe enough to like really show up as your real self and talk about the thing that you feel like you can't talk about with anyone. And so that way, when you leave this place, you're not alone, and you have a reminder, and there's a moment in reality that appeared to you that made you feel like, okay, I'm gonna stay. If we're gonna talk, like, if I'm gonna be really real about why I do what I do, that's why.
I have chills. Like I literally just I I don't even know what to say. Like
I'm about to start crying. Like,
I know. I'm like I'm on the verge.
it's just so serious. Like, it's
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 so
it's
serious.
very
It is
real.
that real. It is that serious, and I think, you know, myself being somebody who is a community builder, community leader, um and have put people in spaces and healing circles and self-care workshops and all of these different types of programming. The programming and the format doesn't really matter. It's about the intention, and it's about who comes into the room, whether the room is virtual or whether the room is four walls and a couch. um when you have done that type of work of bringing people physically together and then seeing how much people actually need that space, they need to be there so that they, like you said, actually want to stay here, you realize how dire the situation is. You realize how high the stakes are. And it's really nice to go to an event and get cued and have, wine passed around, to you, and hors d'oeuvres, and walk away with goodie bags. That's so great. It's really fun. It's entertaining. But in terms of addressing the very, 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 very real and raw issues that people are walking away with, it doesn't scratch the surface. And I agree that that is why you do what you do. That is why I do what I do, because we can put it in a pretty package. Like, we can make it cute, we can make it aesthetic, but it has to still hit home. It needs to be deeper. It has to be deeper. And I really think that if more people realize the depth that they can go, and are okay with creating a space where that depth is welcome. And depth is a concept that you write about in the book as well, right? You talk about depth, you talk about bringing people together, and not just, avoiding conversations about what do you do for a living? What's your job title? You talk about in your own practices, especially with leading goddess council, how you avoided conversation starters like that, and you instead asked people to facilitate in a way the conversations about how your spirit is and what is something that inspired you this week, right? And from there, like, you can just dig so much deeper and actually start to chip away at that superficial kind of armor that a lot of us are wearing when we go into these spaces, because we want to be accepted. We want to, we're being perceived. We want to be felt in a way that feels like, okay, maybe somebody will come up and talk to me because I look cute, I have a cute outfit on, but beyond that, like, what's beyond that? So, I mean, you and I could literally talk about, I know, this specific topic for hours, but I just really appreciate that you included such an important area in the book dedicated to really confronting what community is and what it is not. Um, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about that. But I want to also kind of skip ahead and talk about the way that you talk about sustainability,
Mm-hmm.
and sustainability specifically for leaders and facilitators of communities. You have had a very vivid experience with burnout. And
Mm-hmm.
I would love for you to share some of the ways that you navigated that burnout and you were able to remedy the effects of burnout and continue the work that you do.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like I wanted my burnout to just be over. And I thought like, okay, if I just like do this for a week, if I do this for 2 weeks, like I'll be better. And then I realized like that the experience of extreme exhaustion that was like plaguing my spirit, like my spirit was tired.
Mm-hmm.
My spirit was at zero. Um I had to just surrender to the fact that like I didn't know when I was going to feel like I could reemerge. And I think it's just so interesting that I'm on this tour right now and I feel like I'm reemerging. Like I've been in Mexico for 2 years now, mostly just on my own. I didn't know anyone when I moved there, and I spent a lot of time just walking around with my dog alone, with my journal, with a book, around people who did not know anything about me.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand too that is an immense privilege it's an immense privilege to be able to even do that because I had a savings, but I also like I got into debt. I did all the things that I needed to do in order to extend myself the opportunity to keep just being in the medicine of it all. Because I knew that if I cut it short, then I wasn't going to have like completed the full cycle. And I also like for people who are into human design, I'm a manifester human design type. And I didn't know, but like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know this at the time when I experienced burnout, but apparently manifestors typically like operate in like rest cycles. So like
Mm.
we're initiators, but we're not supposed to sustain things. Like we're supposed to initiate and then retreat. And I think that like the way I was operating when I ran Goddess Council was more of like a generator human design type, where like you get energy from doing the things that you love.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like I love the things that I love, but I also need to spend a lot of alone time
Mm-hmm.
in order to recharge to do it again or to do more of it. And so I like I went overboard with like just not listening to myself for a long time. And that's why I got
Yeah.
to the zero. Had I listened to myself earlier, I would have never gotten to that point of complete depletion. But what was the question you were asking? I'm like going down a whole rabbit hole of like we're talking about like burnout, sustainability. Yeah, that's what it was. So I really had to like lean in. And so for
Mm-hmm.
me it was like a lot of time alone, um, eating regularly, meditating, journaling. For those of you who are into like plant medicine and stuff, like I began to dabble into psilocybin and like
Mm-hmm.
mushrooms as a way to open myself up to feeling feelings
Mhm.
even deeper. And so I was like microdosing throughout the process of writing as well. Um, and just like trying it all out, trying things that I'd never tried before, noticing how food impacted me, noticing how caffeine impacted me, or like how certain things, like I needed to do certain things at earlier parts of the day, not later. Like
Mhm.
everything is just like a balance. It's all like a trial and error. And that's what I did for many, many months, paired with writing regularly, to figure out what my equilibrium was. And then, a few wrenches got thrown into the mix. Like I got my apartment got broken into, and I was exploring these situationships with men that like were not necessarily helpful. So it's not like it was all streamlined, like I'm just a human trying to figure it out. So I made some silly mistakes along the way,
As we
but
do, as we do.
as we do, but in the end, it all revealed that what I needed to do was just like look inward for the answers. I went through a long period of just like no dating, celibacy, all the things. Like I'm just starting to dabble into dating like as of like a few weeks ago. But I was celibate and embraced celibacy for a long period of time and alchemized from that like sacral energy to like
Mm.
just keep it all for myself. And now I'm like, okay, like what is pleasure? Like what
Yeah.
does it mean to date and do this
Yeah.
whole other thing? But I had to remove myself from that for a while in order to recalibrate and to like just be with myself in order to now be able to engage with romance in a way that
Yeah.
feels like solid. So yeah,
I
all in baby steps.
I love that you mentioned celibacy and creativity because I think for those of us who are familiar with the chakra system and how it resonates with our entire body and our being, for those who don't know, the sacral chakra is what is connected to your both your sexuality and your creativity. And so I find it, I think it it honestly resonates that choosing celibacy and practicing celibacy while you're in this like hyper creative mode, it just, I'm sure, as other people have also, shared, that it just heightens this creative like focus. Are
It
you
does.
down to share a little bit more about
Oh
how
yeah.
you realize and how that came to be when you made the choice to be celibate and how it impacted your creative process?
Oh, for sure. I mean, like I thought I always knew I was committed to writing this book. And I woke up, I did the, early morning wake ups and all that stuff. And I was disciplined, but there was more. There was even more that I had to unlock. And it particularly found me, like the moreness, I don't know how to say it, but like the layers that I hadn't accessed were being asked of me when I had to edit the book, because then I got assigned an editor. And when I gave in my first manuscript, like they were like, "This is great, but we need you to go deeper." And then I had somebody just like give me a bunch of feedback, and I then had to like reimagine the book, but not change the book, just go further into what I was thinking. And I needed to access like every bit of my time and my energy in order to do it again, because it's like I wrote the manuscript once, but then like I needed to write it again. I needed
Mm,
to go deeper into my stories. Everything was like, well, what do you mean by that? Tell me more about this, tell me more about that. And like I realized I didn't have the capacity
mhm,
to share any more of my time with anyone but myself, my dog, and like the very, very core relationships that I had, because I was at the computer again for like 6 hours, 7 hours, and I needed to preserve every ounce of that exchange that I was able to give to others, to do it with myself and with what I had written. And the more I did it, the more I was like, oh yeah, like I'm protecting this. I'm protecting this. I have way too much to lose. Like now I'm on deadline. Now I'm being held accountable to like my publisher and my
mhm.
editors. Like I really, really, really need to lock in. And it's just like months and months and months and months and months and months and months kept passing. And I'm like, yeah, I could keep going for a long time. And it was just so beautiful to be able to like feel the recycling of the energy, like it never left me. It just stayed
Mm.
inside. Like all of the fire, all of the passion, I didn't exchange it with anyone. Um, it just stayed with me and with my
Mm.
practice. And then eventually I became more open to new friendships, and those types of friendships came in to my life, and I was able to exchange a little bit more in that way. And so all of it just kind of felt like the first priority is me, and it's my ideas, and that is never going to go away. But I had to really lock into the preservation in order to be able to know what my boundaries are and what I am willing to give. And like I needed to know what to give and when to give, and also how to call it back, and to be able to say, yeah, no, this is now me time. Like as I read about in the book, like I've kind of always lived my life from a place of wanting to share and give, always, always.
Mhm.
And that's what led to my burnout, because I didn't know when to say, you've given enough and now it's time to give back to yourself. And so the celibacy of that celibacy journey allowed me to be like, this is how you reclaim and how you learn how to be really, really confident and comfortable with keeping it all for you, and being selfish and being okay with being selfish,
Yeah.
because this project and this idea deserves all of you. Like that
Mhm.
is your love right now. That is your lover right now. That is who you will be giving your energy to. And that is sacred, and that is not something to be bargained.
Mm.
And so now I've allowed that to happen, and it's also clarified the way I decide that I want to engage in romance, and the caliber of energy I require from somebody else in order for me to even say like, okay, I give you permission to like even be in my orbit. So it impacted everything, my romantic connection, my with my friends, with the way I engage with my family, with the way I engage with my practice. Like it reset everything. I encourage anybody who is single, who is an artist, to just explore that. My celibacy journey went on a lot longer than maybe a lot of other people's, but like, I think that even if you just do it for 3 months, you'll see a part of yourself that you would have not been able to access had you still been engaging with other energy. And it is spiritual, like, not to bring it back to the spirituality piece, but like, it does feel like a very spiritual
Mm.
practice to not release with somebody else, to not
Yeah.
share that with anyone else, but instead to believe that it is like so sacred that it just belongs with you for a period of time.
Ooh,
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's
tea.
worth it.
Tea.
Yeah.
One thing I love about a Capricorn woman, she like you cannot play with her. Like she is not
No.
here for shits and giggles. Don't play with her.
Mm-mm.
Okay, don't do
Absolutely
it.
not.
Absolutely not. I just love the bar that you said about choosing a romantic partner that's even worthy of being in your orbit. Like
Yeah.
that is so powerful. And I honestly credit that to you, just knowing who you are as a person, knowing the divine woman that you are, but also you knew you already made the sacrifice yourself. So you can require that level of like that caliber already came from yourself. So you
Right.
can demand that. You know what I mean? I think
Exactly.
sometimes it's like I think in romantic relationships, we sometimes want somebody who is everything outside of us, but like you already embody that. Like you already did the work. So it's only right to parallel that with whoever your romantic partner is and has the whoever has the benefit and the honor of being in your orbit. It is that deep.
Mm-hmm.
And it is
It is that
spiritual.
deep.
It is spiritual.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Because who you choose to be with, like, all you do all of this work,
Yep.
you go through this whole journey, and you go into the void, you're in and out of the void trying to figure out what you're doing here, only to then choose a person to have to be next to you that's like hasn't even remotely like been curious about that journey for
Yeah.
themselves, or even worse, like wants to confuse you on your journey, like
Or
throw
psych
wrenches
your
into your
energy.
journey, or siphon your energy, or like actually try to sabotage you because they're
Yeah.
jealous of what
Yeah.
you've been able to do with your own, like, hell no. Like
Yeah.
that, and that's not a, and that's a whole other conversation
Yeah.
that we can have, because I
Yeah.
feel very protective of women. I feel very protective of women's journeys and their lives. I feel very protective of like our destinies. I feel very
Mhm.
protective of like trying my very best to like illuminate and to awaken women to like the fact that they should also be very protective of themselves, because like they're here for a very, very, very important reason. And that goes beyond having children and like,
Yeah.
creating life in a human way, but like just the impact that we're supposed to have here.
Right.
And patriarchy and like the energy of a lot of men, unhealed men, is kind of set to like take us off of that. And when we are on our divine path, it impacts everything,
Everything.
everyone.
Everything.
And so it is not something to be played with. And for a long time, I think sometimes I come across like a woman who like doesn't want women to love, or like doesn't like men. And it's like, it's not that. Like, I love and I love romance, I love all of that, but it has to make sense. It has to make sense. It has to be the kind of love and romance that amplifies you. It makes you more of what you already are.
Yeah.
It can't dim you.
Yeah.
And there are so many examples of women's light being
Yeah.
dimmed,
You can see
and
it
then they
though.
don't,
You
you
can
can
also
see
physically see it.
it.
I think so many of us have witnessed someone that we love, especially us women. We've seen our friends or people that we know, like they're fine when they're single and then they get into a relationship with someone and it just like the light in their eyes just starts dimming little by little and you can literally see it
Yeah.
and it is
Yeah.
that deep. So no,
Yeah.
we definitely need to have a part two to this and we can like it's gonna be spicy, but we can definitely
it,
do
it
part
it
two.
absolutely would be
No,
spicy.
it will be, but I think we need to take it there, and we will definitely have a follow up conversation because that is, ooh, yeah, we could really get into it. We could really get into it. Thank you for sharing all of that, though. Just resonates very deeply, and I think that it needs to be said and needs to be said in a way that is comes from a space of clarity that you also have, and it's like very evident that you're coming from a place of clarity. It's not coming from like a place of like bitterness or like malice or anything. It is truly just the clarity that you've experienced by doing the work and having that period of solitude that you had. And there's a reason why people, when they want to create like their next album, right? Like when we, for, I'm also very curious about like just like artists in general when they like kind of go into like their cave. Like I think about Frank Ocean or Solange Knowles. Like when they're quiet, I'm like, oh, they're probably working on something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Or your favorite author, like a lot of times creatives do need to have that solitude in that space so that they can really just laser in and focus. And so I think this is just also just like a love letter to creatives and artists to like protect your art, protect your work, because it lives outside of you as well. As much as it is like in your head and in your heart, it's also like very much a connected experience that artists and creatives share. So thank you for sharing that so much, Kat. One thing I really want to end with in this conversation is I really love the way that you wrote about your abuela. And I love hearing how she was such a community builder in her own way, and she is very much so, I know, a big part of your journey. You
Mm-hmm.
and your Whale are very close, as well as the other matriarchs in your family. But that resonated with me because I thought about my own mother and how she is like, if you know Miss Abigail, you know her. Like you just know she has probably cooked for you. She's probably braided your hair because she's a cosmetologist. She's done a lot for a lot of people, okay? And like when you were writing about the women in your family that have shown up at the hospitals, have like been there when someone gives birth, have been there to just like all of the gaps that we have in our communities, there are people
and my mom uses the word people who like intercede on your behalf. And
Mm.
I think we should talk more about that. And I would love to know how, if you could rewrite or reimagine the way that us like millennials, Gen Z, like our generations, how can we start to embody and practice some of the ways that our elders practice community? What would that look like for you?
Oh my gosh, I love thinking about this. I mean, the thing is, it's like we cannot deny that our society is different than it used to be,
Yeah.
right? So I understand that the way our elders showed up was during a time that is not what it is now. And also, like, the pressures of capitalism are no joke. Like, people are under a lot of pressure, and a lot of folks are like barely making it.
Yeah.
Um, but that is precisely why we need each other even more, because we don't need to be doing this alone. Like, something I've been thinking a lot about is just like kind of disrupting the schedule, disrupting the, oh, no, I start work at this time, I come home at this time, or I close out my day at this time, I do this, and then I go to sleep. Like, actually try to open up some space to see what else you can be doing. Maybe it won't be a cookie cutter schedule, but like, can you go make a meal with one of your friends? Is there somebody that needs a visit right now? Is there a call that you can make to just check in and ask that person if they need something? And if they say they do need something, will you actually make it happen?
Mm.
Um, just like, I don't know, like, inconvenience has such a negative connotation, but I've been thinking a lot about like, well, what does it mean to inconvenience yourself out of love for somebody?
Mm.
Like, yes, like, did you want to maybe just sit and watch a movie or just like not do anything? Yes, but like, if you instead for the next hour went and did something for somebody that really, really impacted the way that their week, month, that whatever moment will feel, is it not worth it? Because you can still come back home and watch the movie,
Yeah.
but you just did something really important that is going to be an unforgettable moment for somebody else, that just deepened their ability to trust you,
Yeah.
and it made them feel less alone in the world.
Yeah.
Is it not worth it to do that? And I know like physical distance is a thing, like maybe we don't live around the people that we love, but like, I don't know, there's just so many ways to kind of get around that too. Like, you can send somebody food, you can,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, everybody has their own, life that they're living, and it looks different for all of us. But I think that's what my grandma does so well, but she doesn't even look at it as an inconvenience.
Mm-hmm.
It is like a duty for
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
And so that is really what I want to embody. It's like, it's a duty for me to show up for the people that I love, because that's what it means to be in community and in relationship.
1000%. We talked
Yeah.
about this at your book talk at Cafe con Libros, and I just wanted to share that again, like bring up that topic piece, because I think right now we are definitely in a very individualistic era when it comes to our social fabric, and a lot of people are also kind of misusing therapy and therapy speak as a way to create these like very like rigid ways of being. I think wellness and self-care, mental health have also been commodified in so many ways, but I think one of the negative impacts is now people are like, well, I don't have the bandwidth for that, or oh, I have a boundary with this and I can't do this. It's like if you are constantly missing out on people's biggest moments, or if you are constantly letting down people that need you, you are not being a good friend. You're not being someone who is in community with other people. Being in community is not about just all wearing the same designer or going to the same party or being invited to the same whatever opening of a restaurant or bar, whatever the hell it is. It genuinely does sometimes require inconvenience. And I think
Yep.
that's the thing that's missing, is that nobody wants to be inconvenienced. Everybody wants
Mm-hmm.
to be catered to. And sometimes we forget that it is okay to put yourself first. It is okay to prioritize your mental health, as you should, right? However, if you are constantly just not showing up for the people that
need you and that you will need as well, because it's not just a one-way street, you know?
Exactly.
What are you doing? So I just think that, we have to remember that we do not live in silos. We don't live in these like bubbles. I know that COVID did a number on us and really made us feel like we do live in a bubble, but we saw how much people were desperate for community at the height of
Hmm.
COVID. We witnessed it, we felt it. A lot of us lost so many people that we love. And then we all kind of went back to normal. Like, I think that's why everything feels fucking weird right now. I think that's why we're seeing people crash out all the time and spiral and feel, celebrities included, because we're just
Yep.
like, we never addressed this. And
Yep.
then the pieces that fell apart, nobody wants to pick them up. Everyone just wants to keep moving and like not
Yep.
look people in the eye, not ask someone, how are you? Your friend texts you, hey, I'm not feeling well. Oh, sorry, hope you feel better. And then that's it. You never say, like, hey, like, I'm around. Do you want me to come by? And like, I'm going to Trader Joe's. Do you need anything? Because you know damn
Yep.
well you probably are. Like, you
Yep.
can do that. You can.
Yep. You
You
can.
can.
You can.
Yeah.
And if for whatever reason you can't physically go drop it off, you can schedule
Send it.
that to get delivered.
Exactly.
And if you do use a service like that, make sure to tip your delivery
Yep.
person well.
Yep.
Um, but come on, like I think it's all of those things, and to the point of what you said, because you want them to do it for you, right? So you don't want to be
Yeah.
inconvenienced, but if there's an inconvenience that happens in your own life and you want somebody to help you, do you not think that they would rather be chilling
Yep.
than to be trying to say, yeah, but they love you.
Yeah.
They want you to be better. They want your
Yeah.
life to be a little easier. So of course they're going to show up for you.
Yeah.
So, but you wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, we could literally have a whole conversation about the loneliness epidemic and really what's at the root of it. And I think a lot of people are finding that they have people maybe that they can invite to a birthday or a wedding or a baby shower. But then when they're sick or they're going through a breakup or they're going through something like they've been laid off, they actually have no one to turn to. And that's scary.
Yep. Yep.
That's really
That's very
scary.
scary.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you for this beautiful, incredible, and just like multifaceted conversation. I want to end with a rapid fire, of course, and just share my just gratitude for you being here again. I really, really appreciate you. And this was such a enlightening convo. So thank you
Oh, this was
again.
so enriching. As it always is. Anytime I have a conversation with you, it's like we need more and more and
We
more
need, yeah,
conversations because like
yeah.
we didn't even get to we just scratched the
We literally did.
surface.
We literally just scratched the surface. So yeah, part two soon come, soon come. But
Yes.
we will get
Yes.
into the rapid fire. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so first question: hardcover or paperback?
Paperback.
Mm, we love a paperback. I think I already know the answer to this, but early morning sessions for writing or late night?
Early morning.
Yeah. Um, if you could give one piece of advice to new writers or soon to be authors, what would it be?
Stop making excuses.
Oh,
Just do it.
I love a
Very
Capricorn.
Capricorn of me.
That's what I'm saying. Don't play around. Simple. Uh,
Sorry.
Mexico City, Miami, or New York? Okay, wait. Actually,
No.
let me make it a little bit more robust.
They're all.
Okay. F, Mary, kill. Mexico City, Miami, or New York?
I would. Oh my God. I would. I would. I would fuck Mexico City. I would marry New York, and I would kill Miami,
Everybody in Miami listening to this right now is like, oh,
including my mother, my sister, my niece.
I'm crying.
Oh my God, I have my own thoughts, and literally I'm over here like maybe I'm gonna be spending more time in Miami next year. Like I do think Miami is great in some ways, but like I am a very like I'm a disciplined, sit down and get shit done kind of person, and New York is that.
Yeah.
Miami is like rest and relaxation and show up to everything late, and Mexico City is like oh my God, like I've found myself
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
It's completely different, but like yeah, my energy type is very much like a about the fucking table with my hands crossed, like what are we doing today? And Miami is like the opposite of that. Yikes.
That's
Sorry.
hilarious. Last question. Build something from scratch or innovate something that's already existing?
Build something from scratch.
Ooh,
Yeah.
manifester. We love it.
Yeah.
Kat, my friend, thank you so, 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 so much for being here. This was
Thank
beautiful. This is long overdue,
you.
but also low key at the perfect time.
Yes, I would agree
I
with that as
don't
well.
think there was a better time to have this conversation. If
Yeah.
you are interested in learning how to build and architect intentional community, please get Kat's book, Build It and They Will Come. It is available on Amazon, I believe, on your website,
Target.
Target.
Yeah. And you can also, if you are near an independent bookstore,
Yeah,
feel free to go in there and special order it through them. The book is available through the distributors that they all use. So like I would also really encourage you to just pop into your local bookstore and have them order it and go pick it up at the store when it's available.
amazing. Everybody needs to read this book, especially people who are working closely with other people, not just people who are, working as community managers or people who are in the industry of the community space, but genuinely, if you work with anybody, if you are a healthcare professional, if you are someone who facilitates gatherings with people, if you work with people with special needs, if you are just somebody who wants to deepen your human connection and also find belonging through those connections, I highly, 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 highly recommend that you pick this up. This belongs on everybody's desk. Okay, there's some people that I'm like, I need to see this on your desk before you say anything else, because you just you did that, girl. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you, girl. I
Beautiful. This
appreciate
is a
you so
masterpiece,
much.
and
Oh,
please tell us how we can stay connected, and see what your next projects are. Also, just see and live vicariously in your life in Mexico City. Just all the things.
yeah. So I'm on Instagram. My handle is cat.lantigua. I have about 130 or 120 episodes on my podcast, Chats with Cat. I'm gonna be back on there as soon as I get back home to Mexico
Yes.
next week. What else? I'm on TikTok, La Jefa Cat. I'm also I have a backup page, Cat Lantigua. Website, catlantigua.com. What else? Oh, Substack. I have a Substack, The Bounce Back.
Yes.
It's a newsletter dedicated to bouncing back from our flop eras. So that's cool. Yeah, I think
And then
there are other places I'm sure, but I can't remember them.
your other newsletter, 11, where you share
11,
11 of your
11 wellness
favorites.
tips.
Yes,
Yep.
we love
That
it.
one has been on hiatus for a while. It's just like I'm a one man or one woman show right now. I'm manifesting the opportunity to have people to help. That way I
Yeah.
can like do all the things at the same time. But that will be coming back very, very soon. By the end of the year, there will be at least one more.
I cannot wait to see all the beautiful things that you continue to create, and also just your evolution as a woman. It's inspiring as fuck. So thank you again for being
Thank you,
here.
girl.
So much love to you. I love you, and I
I
appreciate you.
love you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. Thank you for existing. Thank you for being you and for creating this space for us.
Appreciate you.
To stay connected, join Sadie Baddies on Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, and more, and sign up for our monthly newsletter on SaddieBaddies.com to stay in the loop. Sending you hella love and stay soft, baddie.